States. Before Avtech Solutions, Wayne spent 6 years in the Navy, where he spent 2 years going through the Navy's electronic training program. Ooh, sorry, I'm a little out of breath running here. one of the best training programs in the world, and then 4 years on the USS Dallas, SSN 700 submarine. After the Navy, Wayne worked for a supercomputer company in Dallas, Texas, where he noticed many businesses didn't have the technology in place to address their large-scale automated backup operations requirements. In response, he launched Lexicon Information Concepts LLC, which after 7 years of success, he sold to one of his vendors, Legato Systems, Inc. Wayne worked for Legato Systems as a senior vice president for a while after the acquisition, but quickly realized that his entrepreneurship is in his blood. In 2004, he founded Avtech Solutions on the core beliefs of communication, loyalty, integrity, knowledge, and continuous growth. Wayne is a firm believer in the quote, "Good customer service shouldn't be just a department, it should be the entire company." He's committed to providing the best customer service in the business, and he and his entire staff always go the extra mile for their clients. Today, Avtech Solutions is in high demand. Wayne has over 30 years of experience in information technology, focusing on implementation, storage, and data systems, IT management, and system integrations. They partner with global leaders such as Hewlett-Packard, Dell Technology, and the cloud computing company VMware. In the community, Wayne is a longtime supporter of the Special Olympics. He also supports his clients' community service in any way he can. For instance, Wayne helped build beds for children at the homeless shelters with Austin Bank employees. Wayne and his wife, Susan, have been married for 34 years. Together, they have grown a daughter who's a teacher and a coach. Wayne and Susan live on a 34-acre Texas farm where they enjoy spending time at the lake, at a Rangers game, or in the woods. Thank you so much, and please welcome me in welcoming Wayne Hunter to the stage. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, that's the presentation. Any questions? Shall we go? I appreciate y'all letting me be here today. And today, even though they said on the actual schedule, they said it was going to be technical. Not going to be technical. We're going to talk business. We're going to talk about being prepared and how that's related to cybersecurity, which we've been beat to death with, and compliance. But the reason why I want to talk about it is because there's things that's happening today that have financial impact to everybody in this room, including me. So with that, what I want to do is talk, am I prepared? Do you feel you're prepared today for a compliance audit? Anybody? Now, the poll said about half of you are. Don't be shy. This is a conversation. I'm not going to bite. I believe you can say you're prepared, but in a minute later, you may not be, because things change in our business every day. So let's talk a little bit more about being prepared. My wife and I love to prepare for vacations. We want to script out everything we're going to go do, what we're going to see, how we're going to get there, everything. My daughter, when she graduated college, we said, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to do for your graduation present?" She says, "Dad, I want to go see the Mediterranean like you did." You don't have windows in a submarine. I didn't see much of the Mediterranean. But that's what you want to do, and so did I. So we started planning. We had a couple of years for graduation, so we started planning, just like we did on the submarine. That's in 1982, 9 o'clock in the morning. We're getting ready to go for my first med cruise. I remember it well because I smoked my last cigarette, flipped overboard, and quit smoking. 3.5 packs a day. But we prepared for that 5-month journey to go to the Mediterranean, to do our duty. But on a sub, you have to be prepared because it's life and death. You intentionally sink a 69,000-ton ship. Yeah, I won't step over, I promise. If I fall, just pick me up. When you intentionally sink something like that, you got to be prepared. But in the vacation, and as we started preparing for that, this is what I was preparing for. I wanted to see that beautiful blue water in the Mediterranean, sitting, having a cerveza on the back deck of the ship, listening to that. And let me tell you, it's awesome. I've done it multiple times. But also, when you're preparing and we're sitting here, we was thinking about, okay, all the stops we were going to do, we prepared for. The one I prepared for the most was the Greek Isles in Santorini. because I wanted to do that. I wanted to sit and eat cheese, drink wine, and look at that beautiful landscape, and it is gorgeous. But what's interesting is, Stephen King says, there's no harm in hoping for the best, as long as you prepared for the worst. Did I prepare for the worst? Did my wife and I prepare for the worst on our trip? Because when you prepare, you typically look at what the best outcome is. I want the best, right? For me, my employees, my family, my friends, everybody. But when you get focused on that, you miss things. So when you get to Santorini, there's 3 ways to get where I wanted to be, eating that cheese and drinking that wine. One, I could take a bus up that. My wife, motion sickness. She really didn't like that idea. Or you can either walk up this or take a donkey ride up it. So, I'm adventurous. What do you think my wife did? Now, obviously, Mama's not happy. Nobody's happy, right? Well, she wasn't happy about it, but we took the bus up. And of course, she didn't take any Dramamine. We wasn't prepared for that, for the worst outcome. But she was a trooper. She did it anyway. So we got up there. We got up to that wine and the cheese and what we wanted to do, and started enjoying our day throughout the time. But it made me think, did I prepare for the worst? So we started thinking about all our next stops and going, okay, what have they not told us in those brochures? What is it that's hidden I don't know about, so I can plan for it and be prepared for that outcome? So am I prepared for the worst? In our business today, everybody's, you've heard it a million times. We're afraid of that hacker getting into our environment, getting our data. Doesn't matter how small we are. I have customers that's been a single employee company, is the owner, and they got phished. Their bank account got emptied. Okay? They wasn't prepared for the worst. It happens to all of us. And even when we prepare, it's very important, because you never know what's lurking underneath that beautiful blue water, because it's silent. You don't know where it's at. Of course, me, I love this because my buddies that are on aircraft carriers, like a couple of my cousins, a couple of my brother-in-laws, something like that, and others that are on other surface ships, we call them targets because I can see them. It's easy to plan for them. But this, it's hard to plan for because you don't know where they're at. They're silent. Just like those hackers that get in our environment. They're silent. They get in. How many knows how long a hacker sits dormant in your environment before they really let you know they're there? Anybody know that number? 120 to 180 days. Because what they're doing is gathering data. They're preparing for how they're going to deal with you. Because they're a business too. They prepare every day. They have vendors that supply them software that they pay for. They have 7x24 support. So if you don't know how to use it, they'll help you use it. They patch the software for them. We often do those things. So being prepared for the worst is very important because it is deadly. Very deadly. And if you're not prepared for it, it's a very bad day. But in our world, when I was researching this, silent but deadly, I wanted a really good meme to have for a slide for you. And this is what I found. Deadly, silent but deadly. And it's for 10-year-olds and up. But then I thought, us guys on the submarine, we really got to have something really take our minds off being way deep underwater and afraid of fire, flooding, and all that. So we would have loved this game. But really what I'm worried about today is not necessarily deadly, but costly. Because the hackers, they are silent and they are costly. But not only is the hackers costly, but compliance is costly. Okay? Think about this. In the banking environment, they spend an average of $10,000 per employee per year to be compliant. One of the most regulated outside the DOD. How much do you think they've been fined for non-compliance since 2008? Anybody know that number? $243 billion. Yeah, I'll say it again. $243 billion is what they've been fined because when they were audited, they wasn't compliant. We have a lot of industry compliance requirements. We have federal compliance requirements. We have industry. We have cybersecurity insurance now with all the requirements of its doing. It is costly. The Cybersecurity Ventures put out a report that is estimated by the end of 2023, this year, cybercrime will have cost us $8 trillion. That's 25% of our national debt. Maybe we can get them to actually pay the debt off for us. But what's really scary, and this is where I'm coming in and thinking about, are we planning for the worst, is by 2025, it's estimated it's going to increase 24% to $10.5 trillion. I'll take 24% growth in my business every day. But think about that. How's it increasing when we're steadily putting more and more tools out there? You got vendors that call you every day. I got the best tool in the world. You put this in, you won't get hacked. If you ever say that, hang up. Because it's not if, it's when. Because remember I said they have a business and they're evolving new ways. They're using the exact same tools as we use to protect ourselves. We just have to be better how we deploy it. We have to be better how we monitor it. We have to be better how we pay attention to it and evolve and apply changes and be ahead of the game. Because that's what they're doing every day. And that's what creates that. So it's not a sitting thing. It's not where we used to be able to do it once a year and then I'll worry about again next year. We talked about the $243 billion. Why do you think that is? I did some research on that. Why do you think that one of the highest regulated environments we have still gets fined that much for non-compliance? Well, they have somebody in charge of compliance that has no idea about security or IT, because when it comes time to actually do the actual assessments, the audits, where do they get the resources to go do it? Anybody know? Come on, somebody knows. They ask IT. They get resources for IT to make up the Tiger team to go do the assessment, to do the compliance report. I don't know about you, but I never call my baby ugly. She's beautiful. And that's how IT guys thinks about their environment. You're going to have the very person that's supposed to be doing it, evaluating themselves. It don't work. The auditors are actually breaking down on that very hard. Because we do compliance as a service and come into it. I also have IT guys that take care of clients, and we do the compliance the same one. And the first thing the auditor asks me and says, who's doing what? Separate people. My compliance team is not my IT team, and IT is not compliance. It is church and state. And it should be for everybody. Because that's the only way you're going to get a true evaluation. Okay? So what does it mean to be prepared in my business? What does it mean to us? So we're really going to start driving a little bit more to business now and see exactly where we're sitting at. So my fifth grade teacher, Miss Maxie, she was one that always made me really think about making sure I knew the meaning of the point I was trying to get across. And I remember sitting and we was talking and coming into his work sentence structure, verbs, adjective, and all that stuff, right? And I asked her a question. And she said, Wainberry, Wayne Berry, and Berry's my middle name, not my last name. My dad's Wayne Berry Hunter Sr., I'm Junior, so they called him Wayne Berry. Now everybody calls me Wayne, so I'm always looking for my dad. But she says, pick up the dictionary and look it up. That's the only way you're going to remember it. Well, I'm a little gray, and dictionaries were big old books, and you had to search through them. But Google's great. So when I Googled it, prepared, adjective. But what are really interesting to me is the synonym of it. Subjected to special process or treatment. Special process or treatment. So on the submarine, anytime before we go out to sea, we'd lay out a plan, a battle plan of what we're going to do. Actually, it's more about test plan, but we laid out a plan. Then we would configure our actual systems to programs to actually execute on that plan. You try to think of everything, you try to do those things. But once you get underway, then you test that plan repeatedly. We'd have drills for fire control. When someone gets on a submarine, the first thing you have to do for the first year, you have to learn about every system on that boat. Doesn't matter what your job is. You can be the cook, but you better know how to do damage control in the engine room for flooding, or fire in the galley, or we've got reactor scram. We have electrical fires. You had to prepare and know, as soon as you heard where the damage was, you had to, one, go to your station, do what you do, but you had to be prepared if one of your fellow shipmen fell down. So during a drill, we had one of our guys coming out of the radio room. In the back of the radio, there's a ladder. Now, anybody seen the ladders put up against a house, and they put it straight up, and the guys get up there, and just to get there, they fall backwards? Well, that's how straight this ladder is. So one of the guys falls, breaks his leg. Not only did it take him out, but it took out the two guys that carried him to the medic, and also took the medic out. So now we got 4 guys out of the damage control plan. The others had to recognize that, adjust quickly, apply that to the plan, and execute. Because the plan never stays the same. You never know what you're going to be subjected to. So you have to be nimble in doing that. So, like they said, I was on the USS Dallas, SSN 700, and I was actually a sonar supervisor. I ran what was called the sonar shack. When we're submerged, we was the eyes, ears, and nose of the ship. Okay? It's our job. And anybody watch the movie Hunt for Red October? Okay, good. I figured so. So you'll know this part of the movie, but I want everyone to listen to the words that are said, because that's what's going to be important.
$40 million computer tells you you're chasing an earthquake. You don't believe it. And you come up with this on your own. I've got all relax, Jonesy, you sold me. If I can get you close enough, can you track this sucker?
Yes, sir. Now that I know what to listen for, I'm back.
So a $40 million computer tells him he's listening to an earthquake, right? Well, that computer's been programmed to look for certain things. And it's taken all the knowledge we've pulled in from over the years of what things sound like. We know what a submarine sounds like. We know for every type of submarine, I had to know what its propulsion sounded like, what it would sound like when it cavitated, when it's making a turn, what kind of noises it would make. If it's at periscope depth, what did it sound like? And we studied to be certified as a sonar suit. So we're always preparing and coming into that. But the computer told him this. What'd Jonesy do? He sat down, listened to all the recordings, played, tested, all this, and all of a sudden he realized when he sped it up, it sounded mechanical. Well, he can't just run to the captain and say, oh, we've got something. Okay, what do we do? Never come with a problem without a solution. So he prepared a plan, not only now what it sounds like, I programmed the new computer to go do it, but also he educated the captain on how we find the sub. So it's not only preparing ourselves, but our team to go off and do this. And so they was able to bag that submarine. So we must do the same thing to prepare ourselves for compliance, cybersecurity compliance. So what I want you to do is share some things about what we're doing here, and I'm going to tie this in some very specific things, those of you taking the poll questions, very specific things that we must be doing today as non-banking financial institutions, okay? Know your compliance. Everyone should know the requirements of their cybersecurity insurance policy. Start with that first because it applies to everybody, okay? But your industry, know what is there. If you're affected by federal government, know what's coming in there. City, state, local governments, know what's coming in there because that's changing every day. It's going to change again here in Texas due to Dallas. It's going to happen. So we need to know that. Run your self-evaluations. Always be assessing yourself, not once a year, but ongoing, because things change every day. Prioritize your security gaps. Now, typically for me, that's called a plan of action and milestone. But it's how I'm going to resolve the issues and get it back into an updated plan. Establish a timeline and get it done. Use a systematic approach. I have a program to do this. I have a plan, but I have the program that actually tells me the actual steps to get it done. Keep tracking and fine-tuning. Ongoing monitoring and management. Not do once, wait a year, come back. Always actively monitoring it, tweaking it, knowing where you stand. Because these days, anybody at any given time, a vendor, a new client, they can ask you, what is your compliance and cybersecurity stance? Do I want to do business with you if you don't have it? I get asked that all the time. Develop security instincts in your employees. If nothing else you leave with today, this is the most critical, as far as I'm concerned. Because 90% of all hacks start due to the lack of education to the employees on cybersecurity. Simple things of how to recognize an email. I know you've heard it, but it's important because the amount of things that's being hacked, and I'll show you this in a stat, you'll see what I mean by it. Document everything. How you install the software in your environment, how you keeping it patched, who's responsible, who has access, change management requirements. All these things apply to you. Who's the person responsible for coordinating it? Who's going to be responsible for doing the remediation? Who's responsible for the instant response plan? Who's responsible for the backup recovery? All of these things apply to you, and it's the law today. So if you look at this, the FBI's Internet Crime Compliance Center did a study over 5 years, and the top 5 ways people get hacked and the cost of money that goes to it. Now, extortion, okay, that actually decreased. That's kind of interesting there. Identity theft. Think about this. You see identity theft, the numbers there, but how many you see multitudes of advertisements about LifeLock? All the time. You're inundated with it. But it's not the one that's costing us the most money. You look at the bottom, phishing, and look at the growth that's continually grow year over year over year. Remember the 24% growth I talked about? They estimate that's where it's coming from. And it's the easiest thing for us to do. There's easy programs, not only to train our employees, test them, but also simulate ongoing to make sure they're being kept up to date on the latest pieces that they need to know. Because chat, GPT, AI, you don't think the hackers aren't using that to form emails to send to try to mimic a CEO, the CFO? They do it every day. And it's getting better and better. So we got to get better at how we identify that stuff. And that's what SAT training is for. you need to be doing, because we're evolving that to keep up on that. And I know we're busy, our day's busy, but we have to make time. We have to prepare at all times. Jack Welch said an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action rapidly is the ultimate competitive advantage. Now, of course, he was talking about business against business, right? But isn't that what I'm talking about now? Us against the hackers? Because they are a business. But these things, when we do that SAT training, simple thing is SAT training, we learn something from it. We don't use it to bash somebody. We should never do that. It's education. We're educating our folks. This is to empower them not only to be better in our business, but have something in their personal life too. Think about that. It's all how we portray the information. If we educate ourselves, educate our employees, not only does it take care of them, it takes care of them at home, and a happy employee performs way better than one that's stressed because their bank account just got emptied. Think about that. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just giving you facts about what we need to do about being prepared. And something simple is usually the one that's overlooked. Oh, I'll get to that later. They're not going to get to it later. So, question. I asked a poll question on this. So, IRS 4557. Raise your hand if you know what that is. Okay, that right along the poll. FTC safeguard rule. Who knows what that is? Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit because this is the meat of what affects you today. The FTC put out the Security Summit that data security is now a necessity for every tax professional, whether a partner in a large firm, sole practitioner, and every authorized e-file provider. They also said every employee, both professional and administrative staff, should be educated about security threats and safeguards. Everyone has a role in protecting taxpayer information. Now, reason why I bring that up is because of this. This is, you got written data security plan, also known as written information security plan. Who has one? Okay. You should, because it's a law. Civil penalties of up to $50,000 for not having it. This is the FTC safeguard rule. It applies to every non-bank financial institution. Okay? It's driven from the IRS 4557 is a guideline, and it's made up of 3 components: employee management and training. We talked about doing the SAT training. This falls in there. Access control falls into here. Who we're allowing in the system, who can access, who has the privileges to do what, how we're educating them ongoing. Information systems, your networks, servers, laptops, desktops, remote users. How are you securing that? What is your plan? How are you applying it? And move forward. And then the ongoing monitoring management of it. All this is in that written plan. That's the law per FTC safeguard. Anybody know when that law goes into effect? And they can start auditing you to see if you have it. June 9th, 2023. Okay? They've been talking about this for a couple of years now, but it goes effect this June. So this is your safeguard. This is the IRS 4557, Safeguarding Taxpayer Data. It's an actual guideline that you can download. And I've got links that I'm supplying everybody, so you can pull this down, plus the PDFs you can pull off the conference too. If you got any questions about it, just ask me. But this gives you a guideline of what I'm talking about. It lays out what you need to do to build the plan. Then in the reference there, it also states what you need to do to build a information security program. So it's not just the plan. The plan's your written plan, how you're going to do it, but what is the program? What are the actual things you're going to do And those things are made up of who's the coordinator, who's your vendors that's doing the services for you, what tool sets are you putting in place to go off and do this, where have you documented it. It's about 15 different items that you get into, but it's all around doing this. And this is based on what's called NIST 7621 IR Revision 1. Okay? The NIST cybersecurity framework is where this is being pulled from. Now, I wrote a book on CMMC, and that's for the DoD. I was a glutton for punishment. I just went and did it, even though I don't do work with the DoD. But I wanted to know what was going on there because it's built off the NIST framework. And if you go look, FINRA, FFIEC, FedLine, all the different things, IRS, the safeguard rules, all these are built from that NIST framework. And it's been there forever, okay? But this is built off that, which will give you this layout. These are the things, this is the program they're wanting you to do. So if you take a look at these things, we got to identify. And this is, you got risk assessments, your management, supply chain risk. So it's not only setting it up for what you're doing for yourself, but are you doing the same thing with every vendor you work with? Are you requiring them? Now I know BIAs are done. But are you asking them for their security plan on how they're going to secure the information that you're sharing between them? Because just because that data went doesn't mean your responsibility ends. Your policies, are they documented? Acceptable use, bring your own device, remote work, encryption, mobile device management, incident response plan. All these components are built into here. So protect, this gets into how I'm actually going to protect the information. If you notice, awareness and training is the second one. It's high up because it's the most vulnerable. Then you get to attack. That's where we're actually putting the tools in, whether it's a vendor is, your own IT, combination thereof, is what you're putting in to monitor this and catch those, okay? Then you respond is, that's when you start bringing in incident response plan. If I find an issue, what happens? For example, if, we had a bank that actually had a nation state attack. Our SOC caught where he come in and we isolated him. So the first step is we isolated that box to where it could not go anywhere else, real time. Then we started identifying how they get in so we could figure out what was going on. Well, we found out that that customer hadn't patched one of their systems that had a vulnerability, and that's how it got in. But then we had to go into recovery mode. How do we recover back to where we need to be? Encrypted data in a backup is great, but it's not immutable. That term, immutable, that means you cannot delete it. And that's actually a requirement in your cybersecurity insurance. Did you know that? If you don't have immutable copies of your backup, your policy rates will go up. I'm knowing underwriters that are not even writing the policies if you don't have it. Because there's no way for you to guarantee you get the data back. You can't do recover. So their liability of having to pay out, the risk is astronomical. Yeah, go ahead. Sure, I'll talk with you offline with that, absolutely. I'll be able to do that. And there's several out there and that you can use. And there's a difference between the backup and usually the immutability is typically a device or appliance that does it. Come into it. Now there's some software that can create a mutable image, but it's really another level of technology put into it. But I'll be happy to talk to you about it after. So that's what comes in here. Now a big area is communications. And the other is improvements. Remember when I was talking about on the sub, where I go in there, we test, repeat. Well, in between the test, we evaluate at the end of the drill, where did we screw up? What happened? Oh, we didn't plan for that. Update our plan. for the improvements and then repeat it. On the communications, do you have a list, not on a computer, of who your top Tiger team is that you're going to call if your systems got locked up? Do you know that right now? Do you know where you can go find it? A simple thing like that, if you don't have it, your instant response plan's dead because you don't know who to call, who's responsible, who's the first one to get started, what you need to do. You'd be surprised how many people don't have that because it's something that's simple and we think about it, but usually, I know I'm bad at it. If I do it inherently, I don't write it down. And this is about documenting. Being prepared is about documenting at the simplest form. So Abraham says, you asked me, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. And I thought about this, and being prepared is all about doing the pre-work to be ready. It takes a lot of effort in the front end to get it done, but once you get it done and then you implement the things to monitor and do it and then update it, it takes less time. But you got to invest the time up front. It's hard. We're busy. We got lots to do. But I guarantee you, if there's a new way to make money, you'll prepare for that real quick. You'll make the time. I do. Isn't it just as important I need to prepare what I've already achieved? Make sure my employees have a paycheck. Make sure they have their health insurance. Make sure they have a place to come to work. Pride, reputation, all those things. Of course it is. So we need to prepare all the time. So as I stated in the references here, we got the taxpayer information, a written data security plan. There's links for that. This video here, that's actually a link to a video. This is actually from the IRS that talks about this and takes into it. And then the other three references, which are on, you can pull down from the event. Also, you can get a copy of this presentation, not a problem. And you can actually go to those, and these are the actual publications. I want to educate you on what you're needing to do, because it is the law. And it's coming up quick to where you can be audited against it. So with that, if you got any questions? How are we doing on time? What time is it? We got 4 minutes left? Oh, awesome. So actually, I would have had about another 10, I would have had about 10 minutes for questions, so it's about right, but that's okay. Anybody got any questions? Besides you, I'll answer the question now that you asked. I wanted to get through the presentation of this. That way I didn't get in trouble for running over. There is technologies like ArcServe bought a company called StorageCraft that has something like called OneSafe. It's an appliance that does immutability, and how it does it is because it's a worm technology. Write once, read many. It's object oriented. So the files split up across a bunch of objects, but their secret sauce is I can actually put my backups there, and we do this as a test with clients, is we'll go in and I'll delete all the backups. And to the client, it's deleted. I said, refresh your screen. All of it's there. That's immutability. And then you cannot touch it. You actually have to get in through their company with 3 levels of authentication to even get in to where you can actually adjust that. There's another one called Exagrid that I use. Those are the 2 primary ones I use to do immutability. And I got several different reference accounts that we use that with. Now, the backup product we put in there, I've got all kinds. So it's more about the appliance and what it does than what the backup software itself does. What I want to make sure in the backup product is it's doing the encryption in flight, and it has it encrypted at rest. So therefore, I meet one of the written data security plan requirements, which is data encryption on my backups. But you also have data encryption requirements at rest on your laptops, your desktops, and your servers. Okay? That's actually a requirement. Did that answer your question for you? Okay. That's your backups. So backup is I'm taking a copy of the data and and typically it's the 3-2-1. I want 3 copies of my data on 2 different types of media, and one of the locations has to be offsite. One of the copies has to be offsite. So that's backup. That's the method that you would use for data protection, okay? That's what you're doing. Backups can be, I can be taking them from snapshots. I can be just doing the incremental changes every day. I can do the whole system as an image. That's backup. Immutability is what I'm doing with the backup file that's landed on the media that I put it on. I'm making that file, the actual backup file, immutable. That's the reason I say I wanted to separate that, is because it's another piece. The backup software itself is not making the data immutable. It's the device it's sitting on makes it immutable. We do it and others do it. There's options to it. A lot of the cloud vendors will put in. Some of them inherently have it because they have to meet compliancy as well. So a data backup vendor, matter of fact, I'm just did a podcast with one, and he's just asked me to come in and do his compliance work for him to make sure he's doing and meeting the immutability grant. He provides that as part of his service. But you have to ask. Not all do it, okay? So that's a great question right there. Really do your ask. That's part of that being prepared. Ask, when I talk about be prepared for the worst, that's a prime example of a question you do to prepare for it. Yes? You're talking CMMC now. So in DoD, and with cybersecurity maturity model certification, that's what the CMMC is for. And then it does have 3 levels. Started off 5, it's sitting at 3, okay? The levels has to do with specific type of information, okay? So, and I'll equate this to what we're doing today. And the reason why I went and through the training of that and then wrote a book on it, because I wanted to know what happened there, because typically what happens in the government finds its way to us. So I want to be kind of ahead of the game. Plus I'm just a glutton for punishment. Level 1 is what's called a self-assertion, is if you have federal contract information, you got a contract, then you're required to do level 1. And that's 110 controls of NIST 800-171, which NIST 7621 that we were talking about here comes from that. It is part of that. Level 2 is if I have controlled unclassified information, CUI. Now I have to do level 1 and level 2. Then if I have controlled technical information, which could be diagrams, all kinds of things, now I have to be level 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So that's the way it is in the DoD. And here, what we need to be tied for is that IRS 4557 have that plan and implement the controls of NIST 7621 for you. Assessment of that is you do your base assessment, you get that done, you go in and do the work, you find your issues, you resolve them, you create a POAM, plan of action and milestones of what I need to fix and how I solve it, and you go do that. You document all that as you go. Customers that we're doing compliance as a service for, we're actually testing that environment every week and seeing when something goes out of compliance. We have a complete dashboard and we show, okay, someone created an account with password never expires. That actually violates a control in compliance. That's how easy it is to be out of compliance, is to have one admin create an account that does not have password rotation. So we're monitoring that all the time. So we see it, then we create an actual ticket to a subject matter expert on the IT side, and they go fix that, they update that, now we're back in compliance. So for you, it's more about meeting these things and how you're going to stay on top of it. So at any time you're trying to do business with somebody new and a client goes, do you have your security plan? You can go, yes, I do. And I have the information to support that it's up to date. That's the part about the ongoing monitoring management, is to prove that it's up to date to the current standards. I get asked that all the time. Good question, no problem. Anybody else? I know we're running up against time, so I appreciate the time. Hopefully this is informational. Any questions, I'll be outside. Thank you.